Hi there, I'm John from CNCKing.com, and today we make a custom UV jig using acrylic. We make a lot of custom jigs here in the shop for a variety of different purposes and applications. Sometimes for woodworking because they need something to follow with their router. In that case we make plasma cut or water jet cut or laser cut steel. Other cases we make jigs for people who do UV printing, such as this. So you can see here, it's acrylic. It's 2 layers of 1/8 inch thick, which is roughly 3 millimeters. There's a little bit of white powder on this, and that's actually a residue from the bonding paste. Whatever doesn't bond to the acrylic actually just becomes dust, which is kind of neat. Anyways, this is for phone cases for the customer's UV printer. So what they do is they put the phone cases on here, they put it in the UV printer, printer goes across, does all the work, then they take it out, they take the cases off, put more cases on, and they put it back in. The nice thing about jigs is the repeatability. So what that means is for the customer, let's say they have an order for 300 cases to do, doing it this way is very efficient because you press a button, now you're making a whole bunch at once, instead of just putting one at a time in the machine back and forth, which basically just takes over your life. Even here in the shop when I do jobs for customers, the first thing I think about is, can I make a jig so that I don't have to press the button for every 1 unit? I just press the button every 10 units or something like that. A very common issue that happens with UV printed jigs specifically, whenever we do these kind of jigs for customers, is that often we do the part based on what the customer tells us. So they tell us, this project here, the part is 2 inch by 3 inch, and we need them to fit over this surface area, which is basically what we're cutting here. The problem they have is we make the jig, we make the design drawing, we get them to approve that, of course. Then we send it off to them, and they find out their parts don't fit in the jig, and they can't figure out why. And more often than not, what happens is the customer gave the measurements without measuring the pieces themselves. So what they do is they look on the box, and the box says, okay, these parts are 2 inches by 3 inches, so that must be the space that I need on the jig. And it happens very often where those specs are actually quite way off. You have to keep in mind when you're making jigs, you don't want a super tight fit, but you don't want a loose fit either. So you don't want something that's 2.5 inches if all you need is 2 inches, right? Or 2.1 inches. You want it to be almost dead on with maybe a millimeter or 1/16 of play, a little bit on the jig. So what I always tell customers is get digital calipers and measure out a few of those pieces yourself in a few different spots. Because what you'll find is what the manufacturer tells you the size of their stuff is, and the actual size of the stuff actually are two very different things. And more often than not, this happens a lot on UV printed products for some odd reason. They can't keep their tolerances, worth a damn for most of their products. Let's say golf balls and that kind of stuff, you have a lot more giveaway because they lay onto a hole. But when it comes to, let's say, phone cases and that kind of stuff, there's a lot of play involved, and you want to double check and triple check all your measurements, not only on the one piece that you want done, but measure a couple of them from various boxes just to make sure they have a uniform tolerance. When it comes to the options that we can actually do the jig, we can make them out of literally any material, any size, any shape. Generally for UV printers though, we use acrylic. And the reason for that is generally you want something lightweight like this here. We can make it out of stainless steel, but it would be a lot heavier. The acrylic is actually really flat as well. You can see here how dead flat it is. Now for this application here, this is fine. We have something lightweight that we're doing it on. Now if the application involves something that was a lot heavier, then we go into HDPE or other sort of machined products that we actually do here in the shop for UV printers and other applications, of course. Then you need to have something a lot more rigid and also flat. Because then let's say you have something that's about 10 pounds, you put it on here, the acrylic will bend from that. But if you have something very lightweight, not a problem at all with something like this here. So if you're looking for custom jigs, any size, any shape, any material, contact me at CNCKing.com. We'll cut it for you, we'll put it together, we'll bond it like this here if we're using acrylic, and we'll ship it right to your door.